Parish orphans and retrogrades. Happy post-Thanksgiving Monday. I hope all of your holiday was amazing. On Thanksgiving, we released the extended first look at What a Woman Is. If you haven't checked that out, then go see that video from Thursday. Not all of you have seen it yet. Look, we have 55,000 subscribers. Click and like and subscribe and all that because we're trying to get to 100,000. And only about 9,000 of you have seen it so far. So go do that. Now, today, Michael Haynes tweets out that U.S. State Department Blinken met with Pope Francis. And get this, he also met with Cardinal Parler, the Cardinal Secretary of State, and Archbishop Gallagher. Amidst discussion of global politics, Blinken praised the Pope's commitment to advancing the basic rights and dignity of LMNOPQ persons, per a press release. And here's what I say about that. You ready? I had a friend, my friend Ryan, give me a really good nod to a link today. I say, well, the Vicar of Christ is out there being praised for his widespread LMNOPQ advocacy. Recall that the true Christ, the God-man, for whom the Vicar of Christ is supposed to just try to fill in, himself slurred King Herod as Mykonos, a cross-dressing male sex worker. And this is hard proof that Christianity is utterly anti-whatever. And it's absolutely opposite to the picture painted by Pope Francis and the world media and the takeover of Christianity as this nice guy, non-judging, non-slurring religion. So today's show is on that use of the term that Jesus makes in the 11th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, verse 8. I'll read it to you right now. I'll read you verses 7 through 10 in the 11th chapter of Matthew. As they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, he's talking about John the Baptist, what went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? He's talking about John the Baptist's hardness. He's the greatest of the prophets. And, but with what went ye out to see? A man clothed in soft raiment. That's the verse here. Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. So he's talking about King Herod. I'll tell you what the actual Greek word is and what it actually means. This translation has been favored. You know, soft clothing, soft raiment, however you say that word. And it's a mistranslation. I'm going to show you what the actual meaning of that term in Greek was at Jesus' time. But what went you out to see? A prophet? Yeah, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. That's what John was. For this is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before thee. So John is the greatest of all prophets. He's out there like a reed unshaken by wind, living vox clamantis ex in deserto. And he's contrasted against King Herod, the one who's living in the king's home, depicted by Mel Gibson in Passion of the Christ, wearing the eyeliner and having all the weird jewelry and sex workers around, doing weird stuff with animals. Mel Gibson's hip to this. Let's look in an extended way to see if Jesus really does use slurs. At this expression in the Greek, it goes, malakos emphiasmenon. Now, I don't speak Greek. I know the Latin. I don't know the Greek. Contrast this sharply with Blinken praising Francis for his widespread pro-LMNOPQ advocacy. Jesus is out there calling King Herod evil and wicked because he is malakos emphiasmenon. He is, we're going to get to it, basically the equivalent of a cross-dressing male prostitute, the passive partner. So an effeminate sleazebag who is a cross-dressing male prostitute. In other words, parish orphans and retrogrades, our Lord Jesus used slurs. Maybe you're getting the point. I remember back in the day, Taylor Marshall and I did a show on Jesus driving the money changers from the temple. And we emphasized the point that what's been drastically underemphasized in our upbringing is the fact that he fashioned like a whip. He fashioned his own bullwhip and was actually whipping people to get out of the house of God. I never was told this. It's right there in the gospel, but it's intentionally left out. Curious, no? It's also funny that under the advocacy of one James Martin, S.J.,
Naughty Pet.
the Naughty Pet Martin, Father James, he's said before, he said it many times, there is no anti-LMNOPQ single verse in the New Testament. Remember how he always says that? That is a lie. Jesus uses this slur. I could give you some English equivalents, but I'm not going to do that, for King Herod. And so what I did, this will be today's show. I went to, as I always do, the Catena Aurea. This is the fathers. This work by Thomas Aquinas, collecting all the fathers verse by verse on all four gospels. So this is my Matthew Catena, and I found some hints there by, I think, Gregory and who else? Gregory the Great had, or not Gregory the Great, it might be Nazianzus. And who's the other one? Oh, Jerome. There's some hints that this is not just saying resplendent or decadent or something like that, but it's actually saying effeminate. But also, we have some great biblical dictionaries that emphasize this actually means Jesus slurring that group of people who are what you would call today LMNOPQ. So Jesus did use slurs. This is Bill Mounce's Forms of the Greek website. This is a very useful one. And again, the term Jesus uses is, this light is bright here. Jesus says, but what went ye out to see? A man, wow, that's really bright.
Do you want me to close it for a second?
Yeah.
So you can read it.
A man clothed in soft raiment, or raiment. Behold, they that wear soft clothes live in kings' houses. Thank you, Steffi. So that's the line, and that's the typical translation. Now, before I go through Bill Mounce, where he really gets into what is this, what is it, Malakos? I kept saying Mykonos. Sorry, I don't speak Greek. The actual term is Malakos emphiasmenon. And I'll go through Bill Mounce's term. But first, there's an insinuation here by Gregory, I think it's Gregory Nazianzus, in the Catena on this passage. Now, before I go here, I feel like I'm taking 2 steps back to get to all of this content to substantiate today's titular claim that there's this absolute opposite between the Vicar of Christ and Christ on LMNOPQ, and that Christ loved slurs. He used them all the time. But I will say this, when you use your Catena Aurea, Thomas's collection on each of the 4 Gospels showing what the patriarchs of the church said on a given set of verses, I think I might have misled you slightly. It's not one verse at a time. He doesn't go through like every single, think of how much work that would be. One verse of the Bible, and then go and collect what a bunch of the patristics said on it. It's like usually 3 or 4 verses at a time. So this section is Matthew chapter 11, verses 7 through 10. Then he takes that cut, and then he gets Chrysostom, Hilary, Jerome, Venerable Bede, Gregory, Augustine, Ambrose. He gets the fathers. Any of the fathers who said anything about those 3 or 4 verses. What's interesting when you look at the catena on this section, Matthew 11, verse 8, is that all the fathers knew, because they're writing in 400, some of them 200s AD, they knew that Jesus slurred what would 2,000 years later be known as LMNOPQ. Of course. They were operating out of the Old Testament. You think Jerome, the most knowledgeable man in Scripture in the world, thought there was any doubt on this issue? No, only brainwashed, psyoped pseudo-Christians of the 20th century and after think that it's even a possibility that Jesus wouldn't have slurred such people. Same thing with some of the difficulties that were in Steph's and my way when we're enumerating a scriptural passage that implicitly condemn feminism. Now, we've done great work, and that's become the most prominent pillar of this channel and of my ministry. So we did go through and do the work and substantiate those, but it's difficult because it's the same rationale. Of course, Jerome or Chrysostom or Aquinas or anyone prior to really the second half of the 1800s is like, yeah, you can't be a Christian and feminist. You can't be a Christian and pro-sod. You can't. So it's a difficulty because when you're presupposing the presuppositions of your own day, you're not going to address whether or not, like people today won't address whether or not slavery is wrong or right. Everyone just thinks it. Actually, Jonet, moral theologian, manualist of the early 20th century, reminds us, along with Paul in the Bible, that it's not always wrong. But people of our day are not going to, they're going to be using the term slavery or racism or something like that just as an ipso facto, ipse dixit evil. And so they'll slur someone as like, you're the kind of person that might have owned a slave. And they're not even going to bother to substantiate that slave owning is evil. That's because they're presupposing with the presuppositions of the day. Alfred North Whitehead said, you judge an error not by its suppositions, but by its presuppositions. And this is the kind of thing we're talking about. It's also the kind of thing that makes an exercise in exhuming Jesus's overlooked words in John 11, verse 8, a little difficult, because soft Christians in soft raiment of our day have kind of tried their best, a la Father James Martin or the current Pope, to make Jesus seem neutral or maybe even favorable to LMNOPQ. Okay? And because he's presupposing with the presuppositions of his day, obviously this is evil. We have to do a little bit of work in order to prove, well, no, he actually uses this slur, which is delightful. Okay? And again, that's why you come to this channel. That's why you come to this channel. So here's Bill Mounce's Greek dictionary. Forms of the word malikois comes out of the Strong Dictionary. Morphology, gloss. Here's the gloss. Fine or soft. Noun. Male prostitute, specifically a male homo sapien who is the passive sex partner.
Burn.
Meaning a cross-dressing male prostitute who acts like a girl.
That is thorough.
That is thorough. Soft to the touch. Delicate. Examples, Matthew 11:8, Luke 7:25. I don't know what that is. An instrument of unnatural lust, effeminate, used there in Luke 7:25. Someone look that up. Or 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9. Thank you very much, Steffi.
And also, I think I'd like to use this term from now on.
I'm going to start calling people malikois. Malikois.
That's Father James Martin, malikois.
Malikois. Yes. I don't know if you get ripped off of the platforms for saying that.
Amazing.
So here's another translation of Matthew 11:8. I do have Luke and 1 Corinthians up. What then did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft malikois clothing? Behold, or raiment, I like that. Behold, those who wear soft clothing are in the courts of kings. He's referring here, everyone agrees, to King Herod. Modern Christianity has just, I'll say, tarted up, but really softened the context here. Now, Luke chapter 7, verse 25, to give you another gloss on it, says, what did you go out to see? Remember, this Matthew and Luke are two of the synoptic gospels. So it's the same setting. What did you go out to see? A man dressed in luxurious Malachos clothing. Those who wear expensive clothing and live in luxury are found in royal palaces. So that's Luke's very, very close retelling of Matthew's chapter 11, verse 8, in Luke's chapter 7, verse 25. So it's basically the same usage. Jesus is calling Herod flitty. And yes, my friend was like, I wonder if Mel knew this. And that's why he gave him eyeliner and have all the weird manservants around. Of course he did. Of course he knew it.